Welcome to the Medovia Menopause Podcast, your trusted source for information about menopause and midlife. Join us each episode as we have great conversations with great people. Tune in and enjoy the show. Welcome back, everyone. Today it's just me, and we're recording this episode in recognition of Menstrual Health Month and Menstrual Hygiene Day that's recognized on May 28th. It's a moment that brings global attention to something that impacts people for decades, yet still doesn't show up where it should, especially at work. Menstrual health is part of everyday life for a large portion of the workforce, spanning early career through perimenopause, when cycles can become heavier, more unpredictable, and harder to manage in environments that weren't designed with this in mind. And yet, inside most organizations, it's rarely addressed in any meaningful or practical way. Today's conversation looks at what's actually happening in the workplace, what's being overlooked, and what employers can do in simple, tangible ways to better support their people. I'm joined by someone who has been leading this work globally. Diana Nelson is the Advocacy Director at Days for Girls International and played a key role in launching the Period Positive Workplace, helping organizations take clear, measurable steps that are already showing impact. Diana, I am so glad that you are here today with me.
Thank you so much for having me, April. I'm thrilled to be here.
Of course. Listen, before we dive in, full disclosure, you and I worked together for many years when I was in development with Days for Girls, and we had the opportunity to work together here in the US as well as abroad a little bit with a couple of projects. And Days for Girls mission, as you know, is very close to my heart, and I've seen the impact of the work directly in the field. It is truly profound, and we'll unpack that a little bit today. I just remember as I was thinking about having you on today, when organizations didn't want to talk about advocacy. And then you fast forward and that has changed. And I have my opinions as to why this is the case, but you're the expert and you have been in this space for years. So my first question is, when you look at where you are today, what feels different now in the menstrual health conversation?
Thank you, April. That's such a good question. Before I jump into it, I just wanted to let everyone know how wonderful it was to work with April and all that she contributed to the menstrual health movement and is continuing to contribute to this sector. And you just do great work. Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
I think one of the changes that I've seen that I would say is when I first came into this field, everything focused on the girls at school. That was really where people were alarmed and worried about, rightfully so. We want to ensure that girls can stay in school. And it really focused on product, like what is happening, getting product to girls so they could stay in school. And then slowly we started seeing that expand to, they also need wash facilities or restrooms where they can manage it. And then we saw that expanding out. And so I would say the greatest change to me is there's such a more holistic approach on menstrual health today, recognizing, yes, girls are needed, but also women at work. Also, we need accurate information. Also, there's menopause that is the entire life cycle, right, of menstruation. It's not just a point in time. And then also recognizing pain management is a huge one. This wasn't talked about when I was first in the sector. And now some of the studies are showing that actually girls are missing school more likely because of menstrual pain than actual access to product. So I would say that's an exciting change to really pull back holistically, look at both who the people are menstruating and what their needs are holistically.
Yeah, well, we certainly believe in a holistic approach. We talk about that all the time when we work with organizations. It's never really a single solution, right? There's a broader picture and there's a bigger picture that we have to look at. And I know that you partner with a lot of other organizations in the work that you do to ensure across the globe that women and girls do have what they need to manage their periods beyond period products, which of course is part of what you do with Days for Girls. And for those of us that don't know, or the audience members who don't know what Days for Girls is, I don't want to make the assumption that they do. Can you just give us a brief overview of Days for Girls? And then I'd love to move the conversation into period positive workplace.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. So Days for Girls is a nonprofit organization that we focus on advancing menstrual health to ensure menstrual equity. And we do it through um, education. Accurate information is needed. We do it through advocacy work, and then we do it through access to products. And then within that, we have programs that we focus on, which is our period positive workplace, period positive schools, maternal and well-being. There's a lot of need right there as to that. And then the final one is we look at humanitarian and disaster relief. Because as we know, so many times when tragedies have happened, the first thought is we got to get food and water and shelter, which is so important, but menstrual health needs are often left off the table. But yet, if you're someone who's having your period and you are fleeing, that is a very real need that you need to manage. And so we really want to be able to step up and ensure that those needs are met as well as all the other ones.
Yeah, so important. And what's interesting is that Days for Girls started out with just washable products that were being made. And I know that disposables are a part of that equation when it's necessary. And some of those
Yeah.
relief efforts, the disposable products are necessary, right? Because there's a high mobility rate with some of the disaster relief. They're not in one place
Yeah.
at any given time, right?
Yeah. In fact, that is such a good point, April. I think that really goes to know what your the community you're serving needs. And so what we've often found in disaster relief is they actually would like product choice, and we're very big on don't just assume what people know. So we have what we call a hybrid kit that almost all of these go out, at least in the US, like when the LA fires came, we were
Mm.
able to get our hybrid kits there. And so it was menstrual cups, a reusable pad, single use pads and tampons, recognizing that we don't know what one person might need, but let's give them the choice. And I know a lot of our volunteers work in local food pantries and, are helping in their local homeless, displaced house, anyway, or refugee centers. And
Hmm.
they bring these hybrid kits as well. So really knowing, not making assumptions of what's needed, but letting the people you're working with choose.
It's so good. There's so many more options too. I was actually standing at the CVS fem care aisle the other day, and I was astounded at all of the products because I don't have my period anymore. So there's that
Same.
audience. And I love that. I love that I don't. So it's been a while. It's been a skinny minute since
Yeah.
I've stood in that aisle. And it was wonderful, actually, to look at all of the choices that we have now for menstrual products. So, of course, giving women and girls choice in those situations is important as well. So it gives them dignity,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. For
Um,
sure. Yeah.
well, I want to shift the conversation over to period positive workplace because we've done a little bit of work together on the period positive workplace. But as it relates to women in the workplace who are menstruating, can you give us just that broad overview of period positive workplace as well, what that is in simple terms?
Sure, yeah. So, in just very simple terms, is created a supportive environment at work for people who menstruate. And any organization can do it. It only requires three things: provide access to free menstrual products, provide a space where people can manage it with dignity. So, maybe a restroom where there's light, the door is shut. They have
Mhm.
a waste bin to manage their soiled products, and then announce to your employees, hey, we recognize that half our staff has a need and that sometimes there may be a surprise period that comes. We don't want to have you stress about that at work. So we have recognized this and we're doing it. And so those are the three basic things. There's no cost to join, and it's a global movement. We try to make it, April, accessible to any business, whether you're small or large, whether you are in a high income or low income country, urban or rural. These are three things that any business should be able to do.
It sounds very simplistic, and yet I know that it's not the case for a lot of organizations. I mean, for you and I, we think, gosh, shouldn't everybody have period products and access to a space to take care of what they need to take care of and comfort and hand washing? I mean, those seem very, very basic, almost human rights. I mean, I'm going to say that on the podcast. It feels like it's a human right. And yet it's not the case with every organization. I was talking to a school teacher not too long ago who is in perimenopause, and I want to come to perimenopause in the conversation at some point. our periods are very sporadic and unexpected at times in that stage of life. And she leaked through and she's sitting in class. She has a classroom full of students, right? And then the bell rang for lunch. And so she didn't have anything. She didn't have a change of clothes. She didn't have tampons and pads. So she had to go to TJ Maxx on her lunch break, buy pants, get herself taken care of, come back to the classroom and finish her day. No break, no food, no water, right? So had that school had period products in a restroom that were accessible for her, perhaps she wouldn't have had to do that, right? And so as we think about this, why do you think, from where you sit, that this piece is still largely absent from workplace strategies? Why? Hey everyone, I don't know about you, but sleep has just changed. Some nights I fall asleep fine, and then I'm up at 2 a.m., overheated, kicking off the covers, trying to get comfortable again. And if you're in perimenopause or menopause, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's not just bad sleep, it's disrupted, inconsistent, and honestly, it's exhausting. That's why I started paying more attention to what I'm sleeping in and on. I recently tried Cozy Earth's sheets and pajamas, and what stood out to me right away is how breathable they feel. They're made from viscose from bamboo, and they really do help regulate temperature. So when your body is doing its thing in the middle of the night, you're not waking up drenched or uncomfortable. And for me, it's those small shifts that make a big difference. Because when sleep is already hard to come by in this stage of life, comfort actually matters more than ever. This is about supporting yourself through menopause, and sometimes that starts with something as simple as what you're sleeping in. If sleep has been a struggle for you too, you may want to try them. They offer a 100-night sleep trial so you can really see if it works for you. You can head over to cozyearth.com and use code MEDOVIA for 20% off, because better sleep, even just a little better, can change everything. Back to the show.
Yeah, that is such a good question that we have some data behind. And so one of our steering committee members on the Period Positive Workplace works with the janitorial people who work with janitors, like 10,000 companies he works with. It's ISSA. And they wanted to know, why aren't some businesses doing this? So they did a survey. The number one reason it wasn't happening is they hadn't thought about it. Mm-hmm. Number one reason. It just wasn't on the radar. And really, that's not a surprise, because I think there's still so much stigma and shame around and secrecy around our periods. You know, it's really culturally, wherever you're at, we don't really talk about it. And so if we don't talk about something, we can't know there's a problem. Mm. And so it really caused me to reflect on, gosh, think of how many people, like women all know this, or people who are menstruating. We know when we're somewhere like, oh my gosh, do you have a period? You know, you're desperate. Yeah. And yet, but we don't go out and tell our manager if it's I've never done that and said, oh, you know what? I just started my period. And by the way, there was nothing in the
restroom. Yeah.
But yet, right. But yet, you know, if we're at work and there's no toilet paper, we are all enraged. Yes. Right. Yes. Like, hey, we are out of toilet paper. Like, that is a need. And so I think that would be the number one reason that I like to think, someone I was talking to said, they like to say, if it's a male leader, it's not malice, it's maleness. They may not understand, but then hopefully once they know, they become an ally. Mm-hmm. And then I would share in that same survey that they did, that was interesting. They said, okay, if you are doing it, why? And that number one reason was their customers had asked for it.
Oh, and so it wasn't employees, it was customers that were.
So it could be, yeah. And so, and I was thinking, you know, think of a business where you want people to stay, a mall or a shopping center, a movie theater, a library. You don't want people leaving, because as soon as they leave, they may not come back. Right. So what do you do to ensure, if someone's in perimenopause or on their period, that happens, that you could meet that need for them there and they would stay? So it's kind of I
It's
mean, you don't want to
fascinating.
make it, but it does have a benefit for everybody, whether you're the employer or the facility where you want customers to stay, or you're the person who has the period. Like it can be a win-win situation.
I think so. I do make it a point if I see tampons and pads in a bathroom to go tell whoever it is
Yeah.
within that company. I appreciate you having those in the bathroom, even though I don't need them myself anymore. I want them to know and want them to have that feedback. So good to know that they're listening to their customers. And it's also interesting. It's interesting data that you have there because one of the number one reasons why employers don't offer menopause support is because employees aren't asking. So there's still a lot of stigma around menstruation and menopause. The two really go hand in hand. I mean, we menstruate and then we don't, but we're not talking about either one of those, right? And we should. And employees need to have the language to ask for that support so that our HR departments and our managers know that it's needed, especially our male counterparts or our male supervisors and employees. I think you're right. I think they want to be allies. I think they don't know what they don't know. And then once they do, they want to help, right?
Could I, on that point, what I love, one thing I just wanted to add here about the period positive workplace, when you create an environment where you're sending out a note to your employees, hey, we recognize there's a need. We're doing it because it's the right thing, not because we're told to, because we know that's coming. Like we saw in Canada, where they've been every federally funded building is mandated, right, to have menstrual products. We see it in the US, different schools and different universities, their state governments are saying, yes, we will absolutely provide menstrual products. So it's coming. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's nice to have it when your employer saw it was the right
Yeah.
thing to do. But all that to say, I wanted to say, so when what we have found, I wanted to share a quote, actually a statistic. Every year on the Period Positive Workplace, we send out an impact report. We want to know, how is this impacting both the employer and the employees?
Yeah.
And is it working like we're thinking? And so last year, just quick, maybe I could share some data if you don't mind. So
Yeah. That was going to be my
we
next question.
have,
So please do. I
oh,
think it's
yeah.
compelling with your work.
Yeah, so we launched in 2023 on International Menstrual Hygiene Day. And since then, we have almost 360 organizations around the world. We are in something like 50 countries on every inhabitable continent, and it's impacted almost 500,000 employees.
Wow.
And so it really is picking up steam, I guess you could say. But one of the statistics that came out from last year's that I thought was really interesting is we asked, what changes have you seen since you've had become a period positive workplace? And 76% of the managers responded that they'd had new conversations about menstruation at their organization. 76%. So to
Wow.
your point that you made earlier, April, how are we empowering our employees or to come forward and talk about that? It's amazing that just by providing that empowered 76% were able to have conversations, which now you're talking about something that before was taboo.
Mm-hmm.
So now you can imagine how if you're an employee maybe suffering from atypical period pain or you're perimenopause or you're having hot sweats, you could feel more comfortable now to go
That's right.
forward and talk about this because it is something that's happening in your workplace, whereas before it wasn't.
That's right. It cracks the door open, right? It says, I feel
Mhm.
seen, I feel valued, I feel
And
heard, and then it opens the door for that conversation. Yeah.
another statistic I wanted to share that was so powerful, 93% of employees said that once their business or organization where they are working at had become a period positive initiative, that it provided peace of mind to them.
Hmm. Hmm.
93%. Like that is like, because for those who don't have periods, like it is like imagine you had a bloody nose that just came on and you forgot to bring toilet paper because at your work you have to bring toilet paper to your restroom and you cannot control it bleeding.
Mm-hmm.
So you are in the moment frantic, like what I don't want to get on my clothes.
Right.
What am I doing? You're going to everybody. Do you have Kleenexes? Whatever. That's how we feel when we had a period, right? Come without a surprise. And it's like going to handle a bloody nose with no product to do that with. And so
Right.
just knowing that, oh, if this were to happen, I'm going to be okay. I don't have to go to like what you said, go to the TJ Maxx, buy pant, whatever.
Right.
I'm going to be able to manage this. And that
Right.
brought 93% of employees peace of mind.
That is shocking, and it's great. It really emphasizes the importance of the programming, right? And it's again, it seems very simple, and look at the profound impact that it's had. I think about I often think about a traditional work environment when you say this, right? When we're having this conversation, like, oh, a greater Seattle area, for example, which is where I am, I have access. I can go outside of my building. I have access to tampons and pads if I need it on a break, but not everyone is in that situation either, right? So I think we also have to consider, and I want to consider here for just a moment with the audience, other work environments outside of the norm, or maybe you're in a more rural area, or maybe you don't drive to work and you don't have transportation to leave the workplace to get your period products, right? We think about these luxuries when not everyone has them. So it is really important for employers to have those products available so that employees remain in the workplace, they remain productive. Speaking of which, do you have any data from the reporting that emphasizes measurable outcomes like engagement, absenteeism, productivity, retention? Do you have anything tangible in that respect?
Yes, let me see if I can have, yes, we do. It might one I wanted to just share when you're talking about it, because I think you really bring up a good point that there are really two types of employees, right? Maybe some who can't access the product if it's not there because, and it may not be financial, but maybe they have one
Mhm.
car
Mhm.
and their partner took it that day, right? And they can't just hop in the car. So there's that. There's also the lack of funding. But then there's the other half who we have our car, we have everything we need. But I think across the board, what is consistent that is hidden is what is the hidden cost that it's costing the employer for both of those people to
Right.
not manage it at work. So a study was just done by EGAL PADS. They are on our steering committee, and they looked in the UK at their healthcare system, and they looked at one venue where there were 6,000 employees, and most, like 61% or something like that, were female. And so they went in and thought, okay, what if we just provided access to period products? Like, what would that cost be? And then they did a survey and they found out, like, okay, on the surface, yeah, maybe this would cost us a couple $1,000s a year to provide access. But the hidden fees that it was costing them was almost $1 million
Mm.
when you looked at people calling in sick from work, people
Right.
leaving work to go get product,
Yep.
people like lack of productivity, people saying on their, they don't work as hard and as fast, not just because they're worried or it was
Mhm.
unbelievable the hidden cost that it was costing the employer that you could address up front and reduce that for just like,
Those are statistics that we don't see on HR reports. That doesn't mean, I always say that doesn't mean that they're absent. It just means that you're
yeah.
not seeing them on
So
reports.
yeah, so here's a stat from our 2025 study, and it said more than 50% of the period positive workplace employees reported improved productivity, improved work attendance, and peace of mind. That's
Yeah.
50%. That means half of your staff are saying we're more productive now.
Right.
Our attendance is better. What is that return on investment for an employer?
Hmm.
When that is happening, that's quite big.
It's significant.
50, yeah, yeah. And so 63% said the employees said that it was impacting their productivity. That's a really significant statistic.
It is. If you think about I mean, organizations can do the math. If you think about 67% of your employees who are missing 1 day a month per week, per 1 day per week per month, do the math, right? It's significant.
Yeah.
And you're right. I mean, providing period products doesn't cost that much. I remember, oh gosh, years ago when you first started the period positive workplace, one of the objections that at least I heard in development was, what if people hoard them? What
Mm.
if we put those out and then everybody just hoards them and steals them? Can you address that
Yeah. Do you know
here
what,
and now?
Nicole?
Because people might be thinking about it.
It's such a good question. And actually, this year's our impact report, the last 2 years we've focused on, we really want to know how's this impacting productivity, absenteeism, all those, some of those quotes I've shared, and I've got more I can later. But this year we wanted to know what is the implementation cost? Like, how is it working? And are you seeing that exact thing April just said? Is it being hoarded? And so I've just been analyzing the data
Mm-hmm.
today. And one of them said, like, out of, I should pull up my tab, but out of all of the companies, only 27% said that they struggle with implementation. And of those 27%, there's just a few that said in the beginning, they did struggle with people taking more than they should. But
Mm-hmm.
they said when it continued to be there consistently, that's gone away.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's been pretty, and I'd like to liken that to toilet paper. It's
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
if you've never had toilet paper and you go in and there's toilet paper, um, you may be tempted to take some, but none of us walk out of any restroom taking the rolls under our shirts or in our
Right.
purses because we know it's going to be there next time we come.
Yeah.
And it's pretty much consistent with period products. In the beginning, people are so shocked that they are taking more than they should. But as it was consistently there, they all of them said that went away. All of them.
It's that scarcity mentality, right? But you're
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
I mean, once you see it over and over and over again, and you realize this isn't going away, you no longer have that scarcity mentality, right? I mean, I think of it when you say toilet paper, I think about COVID. Remember when it was like, you're never going to have it again. And everybody was just, buying it up at Costco and then they had to limit it to one per person or something. But it is that scarcity mentality, right? And then we figure, oh, wait a minute, I have enough. It's going
Mhm.
to be
And then
okay.
I could I add here. It was interesting. We had a company that was doing it, and she said she was really following the stocking because she really wanted to know, and she would know every night she would leave there was X amount of products, but yet she'd come in the morning and half of them would be there, and she
Mm.
realized it was the cleaning crew, and she said, you know
Oh,
what? I was happy if that's who was using it, and clearly there was a need.
mm,
And she said that was something she didn't realize that was a need she wasn't thinking.
yeah,
Yeah, it was just under her radar. And so she says, when I was kind of mad at first, and then when I figured it out, she's like, I was actually take more.
yeah,
But
yeah.
anyway, that was interesting. And then I would add one other thing. Some of the companies, um, one of the things that when they become a period positive workplace certified, they get this little digital packet, and one of it they have a sign that can say that has helped some organizations. So in the beginning, people don't take. It says something to the effect that these are here for your need. If you don't need it today, consider yourself lucky, but
Mm,
be sure to save it for someone else who may have that need. And just
mm,
having that little reminder that, they're here every day, but if you don't need it today, then save it. So maybe on the day you need it, it's there. And people have told us that that's been helpful as well. Just a reminder that it is for emergencies. We
mhm,
in no way expect you to provide for someone's menstrual cycle the whole time, but it
mhm.
sure is nice when they have that surprise visit come.
I love that language, and the way that it's languaged. It's perfect. It's actually perfect. My husband provides menstrual products for his patients as well as his employees, and they have no qualms about saying, "Hey, we're out of tampons. Can you make sure that you stock those, please?"
That's
It's
good.
just a nice thing to have. I'm wondering, you mentioned that was a surprise for one of the organizations that's period positive. I'm wondering if there were any other surprises in the data, or anything else that has challenged you with this program.
Um, I think one of the things that I've been really happy about that has surprised me is, there's a lot of things needed for menstrual health. And as we know, this is one small piece of that puzzle. And so the goal was always with the period positive workplace, this is step number one. Because what we found, at least in my advocacy work, and this is how actually maybe I could share the inception of it. I remember I was in another country, I was living there, and I had been advocating for a certain thing for menstrual health with the government, and they just wouldn't do it. And a large private sector company came in and showed interest in it and said they would support it. And instantly government was like, okay, we're in. And I just thought, wow, the power of corporate America to move government is, you cannot underestimate. So then I started thinking, how do we get private sector in this arena? Like, because it's really not on people's sectors, as that one study showed. I think because we don't talk about it, there's just so many other things that they're managing. This is just a blind spot. And so I thought, how do we get them in this so that they can actually see the impact it can have? But yet I know business, you need data, right? We all need data. That is, we can have all these great anecdotal evidence, but that doesn't work for business. So I kept thinking, where are we going to get a study that can actually prove this could have a good return on investment for businesses? And that's when, like 4 years ago, the former USAID, United States Agency for International Development, said, let's just look at this. And they went into two different countries and said, what if we just did very simple things, provided access to product, had some conversations on menstrual health, kind of the period pause the workplace.
Right.
Does that have an impact? And they found over time, it had, for every dollar the employer put in, they got a $2 back. So it had a 2-to-1 return on investment. But then what exceeded their expectations was it created less turnover, higher loyalty, more positive feelings towards the employer, more productivity, less absenteeism, all these things that, of course, added to the bottom ROI. And so once we had that data, we were like, okay, we got it. Let's go. And so as I said earlier, the period pause workplace was, how do we just get private sector thinking about this? And that's what we thought. Everybody can access products. And if you do that, we hope you'll do more and more and more. Consider perimenopause, consider menopause, consider menstrual leave or whatever. And so that's what, back to your question, what's been a surprise is seeing the companies leaning in. Like for example, we saw, I think I have a statistic. Let me look. How many did more than expected?
That would be interesting.
So like 79% of employees, like they are giving, they said it's easy. Oh, okay, wait, let me get the right stat. I want to make sure I do this. Okay, 90% said they're doing more health programming. And here's some of the things that they're doing. They're providing just a range of products, maybe not, whereas before they did nothing or just gave one. Now they recognize, oh, we need to do more. 54% are sharing educational resources now. 48% have done some type of staff training. 34% are now offering menstrual pain management. 22% have implemented a menstrual leave. And so I would say that's been the greatest reward for us, is seeing them first, starting with the basic, low-hanging fruit. Okay, we know we need to do it like toilet paper, but then seeing the overwhelmingly positive response that got and kind of building on that. And that really is the goal, is let's just recognize this is one aspect, but what could we do better and better to support that?
Yeah, it's taking the baby step. It's just starting, right? Start and move from there. It moves the needle. I'm wondering if there are organizations that are listening who are thinking, okay, this sounds important, but where do we start? What would be the first step?
Yeah, and maybe you can share it in your show notes. Just go to www period positive. Actually, I say it so much and now I'm kind of, periodpositiveworkplace.org.
Yeah.
And you just go there and it's a very, very simple website. It gives you a lot of data. Like some is 8 out of 10 women have started their period unexpectedly. And 96% of those have to leave immediately to take care of it. Like there's just a lot of good data showing this is a legitimate need. And then one of the pages, you can just register. It's all honestly the honest system. Like you just have to show, are you going to provide access to period products free? Have you announced to your employees, whether in a newsletter, a staff meeting, whatever, you're doing this? And then is your wash facility where they could change privately? And I can tell you one concern that's come up is, especially in some of the other countries or even here in the US, where they share a bathroom space.
Right.
And so some businesses, to deal with that, just have a sign that says, hey, if you're in our company, you can access it in this cupboard or at this
Oh, great.
office,
Yeah.
so they don't want to do it for the whole building because that's
Mhm.
out of their scope, but they want to make sure they're employees. And then I will tell you today, again, as I was analyzing the data, one of them said, yeah, our traveling salespeople, we realized they might have a surprise. So they put together
I love that.
little packets for them. And they said now when they're on the go, they can keep it in their car so that they also don't have to worry. So it's neat to see employers thinking wider, more broad.
Outside the box, right? To think outside the box. It's interesting that you say that because we've worked with several construction companies, and there are females that work construction, and they have honey buckets. And several conversations have been, well, do you even have tampons in the honey buckets? Tampons and pads. Do you have Purell that they can at least use to wash their hands? And they just weren't even thinking about that. So it is thinking outside the box to make sure that your employees have access so that, right, they're valued, they're seen, they're heard, they feel safe. They're not thinking about it all day long. And obviously, there's a financial business case for the business as well, as you've mentioned, with that return on investment. So very good and very easy. Everyone can do it. Diana, we know we can find periodpositiveworkplace.org online, daysforgirls.org if they want more information on Days for Girls. But I'm gonna I'm not gonna let you off the hook without asking you the question that we ask every one of our guests: what the best piece of advice is that you've ever received?
That is a deep question. Oh my goodness. I feel like I've gotten so much good advice. But one that kind of is top of mind, and this kind of comes because my family situation, we move a lot. We've been overseas internationally. And I've always kind of told my family, someone told me as we started that lifestyle, home is where you hang your hat. It
Mhm.
isn't necessarily a structure. It's wherever your family gathers. And now that means even more now that my kids are married and living all over the US. When we gather wherever, wherever we're gathering, whether it's in our home or not, where we're together, that's where home is.
Mm.
And I think that as life changes and adapts, wherever you are is great, and you make it the best that you can, and don't look back. Just
Mm.
enjoy the time, and don't wish you had this or that. Yeah, this is it. This is where I'm at this point, and it's great. So
Yeah.
that's helped me a lot.
Oh, I love that. We're not looking in the rearview mirror. We're looking at the windshield, and home is where you hang the hat. It's great advice. Well, Diana, thank you so much for being here for this conversation. It's important. And of course, I get to chat with you. So always good to see you, my friend. And audience, until we meet again, go find joy in the journey. Take care.
Thanks, April.
Thank you for listening to the Medovia Menopause Podcast. If you enjoyed today's show, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe for future episodes, leave a review, and share this episode with a friend. Medovia is out to change the narrative. Learn more at medovia.com. That's MIDOVIA.com.